right, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the City of Monona Sustainability Committee for October 3rd, 2024. We have a quorum. Laura's got the roll. I'll take a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting, which was September 10th.
I'll move.
Moves. Is there a second? Second from Kristen. Are there any comments or changes, anything that you found that we need to update?
One correction, I
Yeah.
think I wasn't on the list of attendees.
Oh, great. Yes, you were, you sat right
I
here.
know, and
I remember you sat right there.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Later on, it proves that
I apologize.
That's
No,
very
that's all right.
You are always very reliable for like pointing out that. I love that. It's great. Any other changes or updates? Hearing none, I'll approve of passing the minutes with Susan's correction. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Is there anyone joining us online that will be here for the public appearances section? No?
No.
All right, let's close that section. And in that case, I would ask for a motion to take our agenda out of order. We've got two guests with us tonight from MG&E, and I don't see any reason to make them endure through the entire meeting until we get down to the bottom of the agenda. So if there's a motion to take things out of order.
I'll move.
By Tim, a second. Susan, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, wonderful. Okay, so let's hear from our guests tonight from MG&E. They're gonna come to update us on their clean energy plans, is that right?
That's correct.
And then Thor's got a presentation that we'll all take a look at.
I'll get the presentation all the time.
Do you want to introduce yourself? Matt?
Sure, yeah, I'm Matthew Matnier with Madison Gas and Electric. I work in our business customer relations department. I'm the account manager for the city of Monona officially, so most of my conversations are had with Brad Brune and Dan Stefani, if you know both of those gentlemen.
Sure.
A lot of the conversations we have is really about facilities, improving the efficiency of their buildings, if they can site new EV chargers, what the impacts are of their on-site solar systems on the local buildings. So I thought it'd be a good opportunity. I guess high-level leadership at MG&E, we've set some pretty lofty sustainability goals over the last few years in trying to decarbonize our energy generation. And so when we're meeting with government agencies, municipalities who have likewise, very similar lofty sustainability goals, we want to make sure that, hey, we're your energy, your local energy community company. Is that it? Is that how we're branded?
Community energy.
Community energy company. Thank
Got it.
you.
All the words there.
Yes, a lot of word salad. We want to make sure that our goals align with yours. And so that if you have, 2030 goals, 2050 goals, you're taking into consideration what our grid looks like, that we're providing our electricity to you in your facilities. So I've asked Brenda to come. She works in our environmental group. And so she's a lot closer to like forecasting energy use intensity, carbon intensity over the next 10 to 30 years. So she has a pretty awesome presentation to give you guys an update on the progress towards our goals.
Right, yeah, I'm Brenda Sargent and I work with, as Matt said, in the Environmental Affairs Department at MG&E. I'm a manager of environmental affairs. So I work on environmental compliance, and included in that is some sustainability. So I do a lot of the carbon calculations. So every year we do a lot of reporting. So we have some voluntary reporting that we do, and we do some mandatory reporting also that's required by the EPA for carbon and greenhouse gases. And so that is a large part of my summer is just spent chugging away on spreadsheets and calculations and doing numbers and getting them all reviewed and making sure everybody's transparent about where our numbers are coming from and how we're calculating them. And so we have this presentation that we've given, like Matt said, to a bunch of different people. We're happy to come back if you ever want us to do this again for another group, or anytime that you want us to come and talk about this, we'd be happy to. This is just basically, here are our sustainability goals and then where we're at with those. And then, if there's any questions you have about why we're doing things or what we see for the future, just let us know. And if you have any questions that you think of later, just feel free to contact one of us and we can always, get back to you.
All right, so starting on this slide,
This first slide shows all of MG&E's sustainability commitments. So the big one is about reducing carbon emissions from our electricity generation. So 80% carbon reduction by 2030 is based on a 2005 baseline. And that includes all of the electricity that we generate and all of the electricity that we purchase and then sell on the market. So that includes all of our electricity generation. 80% is a mass-based target, and then the net zero target is by 2050. We also have a net zero methane emission target from our natural gas distribution system by 2035. And when we're talking about methane from our distribution system, that's just any leaks, anything that we're releasing during work, during maintenance and operations. We're trying to reduce that, and we're also just trying to get to that net zero by 2035. We're planning on reducing our coal capacity. We still own we're minority joint owners in 2 different coal facilities in the state. One is the Columbia Energy Center and one is the Elm Road Generating Station, which is in Oak Creek. And so we're planning on reducing our coal emissions, our coal capacity. Coal will only be used as a backup fuel by 2030, and coal will only we'll have zero ownership of any coal by 2032. We're also investing over $1 billion in clean energy investment through 2028. That's projects that we have planned, projects that are going through the approval process right now. And then we also have a goal for our fleet to transfer all of our light duty vehicles to either all electric or plug-in hybrids by 2030. I want to talk a little bit about like definitions of greenhouse gases and how we kind of categorize those. So everybody has heard about CO2, that's the main one. And when you talk about greenhouse gases, you'll have those translated into a CO2 equivalent. And when you have CO2 equivalent, that includes everything else. So that's including methane, nitrous oxides, and then the HFCs and PFCs that come from things like chillers or air conditioners. And then SF6, which is a really potent greenhouse gas that's found in some electric equipment as an insulating gas. And so all of those other gases have a multiplying effect when they're in the atmosphere. So for example, like methane is about 22 to 25 times more potent in the atmosphere than CO2 would be. And SF6 is like thousands of times more potent in the atmosphere than CO2. So those are the greenhouse gases that we're talking about. When we have to do our reporting of greenhouse gases, we split those into 3 different categories. The first being scope 1, and scope 1 emissions are things that we're directly responsible for from our operations. So anytime you burn fuel or you're releasing methane from your natural gas system, that's a scope 1 emission that's directly from our operations. And that also includes our fleet vehicles. Scope 2 emissions are actually our scope 1 emissions from electricity generation are our customers' scope 2 emissions. So scope 2 emissions are when a customer purchases electricity from MG&E, they use our rates to calculate their scope 2 emissions to figure out what their emissions from buying the electricity are. For MG&E, scope 2 is a really insignificant part of our greenhouse gas portfolio because we don't really buy energy from other places. So scope 2 is usually when customers buy energy from their utility. It could be also things like steam or chilled water, and usually it's electricity. And then scope 3 emissions are supply chain emissions. So those are things that either are upstream from your business or downstream from your business. So for scope 3, for MG&E, for example, anything that goes into fuel, production, fuel exploration, transportation, and storage, those are our main MG&E scope 3 upstream emissions. Other things included are like employee commuting and business travel, and there's other things in those categories, but those are very, very insignificant for MG&E. And then scope 3 downstream emissions for MG&E are when our customers burn natural gas in their businesses or in their homes. Those are MG&E's scope 3 emissions. And so those are the different categories we have to report on. There's different rules that are coming through where we have to report on some of those things in our financial documents. We have to report some of these through the EPA. And some of these we just report voluntarily because people want to know what the emissions are. This chart shows the climate science about what the global CO2 looks like right now. So this chart shows basically every sector, global CO2 emissions over time. So it's kind of hard to read maybe, but it goes from the year 2000 going forward into the year 2100. And the black line shows where we are, where we have been. It goes up to the present day. If we don't change anything at all, if no countries change anything at all, we'll be on the track of the red line up there. And that shows that we will not be making any of the global goals that the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change have set. And what they have said is that we need to limit global warming to less than 2 degrees centigrade. And actually, the newest recommendations are less than 1.5 degrees Celsius. And so that's what the green line shows and the blue line shows. That's the drastic changes in CO2 emissions that are going to be required around the globe in order to keep global warming below those levels. This chart shows where MG&E's goals are in relation to the percentage of reduction. So the star on that little chart here shows that our original first goal was to reduce our emissions from electricity production by 20% by 2015, and we met that. And our newest goal is the 80% by 2030. Where we're at right now, as far as the end of 2023 is about 40. And that's, it takes us about 9 months to calculate that. So whenever customers are asking for the emissions, the current emission rates, it's always kind of almost a year behind because it takes so long to just go through all the numbers, make sure everything's correct and make sure that it's all been audited and everything. It takes a really long time, more than you would think. So right now we've just finished our 2023 calculations and we're at about 40% reduction from our 2005 levels. So we're about halfway to our goal, which is the 2030 or 80% by 2030, which we fully expect to make. And then our net zero goal by 2050. Sorry, I have this up on my screen so that I can read it. This chart shows the US greenhouse gases by economic sector. And the main point of this is just to show that it's not just electricity that is causing greenhouse gases in the United States. A large part and actually greater part of greenhouse gases in the United States right now is from transportation. And the electric sector has had a reduction of about 35 to 36% since 2005. MG&E is about 40%, like I said, so we're on track, we're doing our part, and we're trying to do better than what the average is. In Wisconsin, actually, agriculture is a huge part of greenhouse gases, and that's something that we need to make sure as an economy, everybody's making efforts to reduce greenhouse gases. The electric sector is mainly doing this voluntarily. There's no rules telling us we have to reduce greenhouse gases. We're doing it because we want to. It's the right thing to do. Our stakeholders are demanding it, and we are trying to do that as fast as we can and making sure that we're doing it in a responsible way. This is something that you might be interested in. This is our intensity rate. So these are the carbon intensity pounds per kilowatt hour. So our original rate was about 2 pounds per kilowatt hour in 2005 when we kind of started tracking this. And right now we're at about 1.2, 1.25. In 2030, we expect we'll be at about 0.4 pounds per kilowatt hour. We're working on a carbon calculator, and we're hoping to get this on our website so that customers can just go onto our website and plug in their electricity use or maybe their expected electricity use and kind of say, if I do some renewable energy project or if I buy renewable energy from my utility, how will that change my carbon footprint as a customer? And then they can use MGE's actual rates to look at that, and then MGE's goals, what we're projecting to calculate those going into the future. So we know that customers have their own goals and their own targets that they want to meet. And we're hoping that this calculator will help people do that. Because right now, you know, people will call us and then it's kind of clunky. They have to ask us, we have to call them back, and hopefully they can kind of do this on their own without having to always try to figure out who's the right person to call at MGE and have to wait. So for customers, carbon reduction is the real strategy. It's the real thing that we need to do as an economy, as a community and everything else. We need to reduce carbon. The most effective and cost-effective way for customers to reduce carbon is to reduce carbon in the things that they have control over. So things like energy efficiency projects, transportation, changing transportation into more renewable sources like electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, and then electrifying appliances in their homes. MGE is working on cleaning up the grid, so we're getting cleaner and cleaner over time. So you know, rooftop solar is something that a lot of people are doing, which is great. But it's not going to give you the bigger carbon reductions over time as of some of these other projects. So when customers ask us like, what should I be spending money on? They should be spending, if they have money to spend on energy efficiency or things like that, that's probably a better use of their money when you're looking at it from reducing carbon from that standpoint. So that's kind of what we're trying to get out into the community and tell people is we want as a community and as an economy to reduce carbon. That's how you can do it in the best, more efficient way, more economical way. Another thing that's very important is making sure that this is cost effective and that it's fair for everybody. So this is where the environmental justice comes in. It's great to just say like, yeah, we're gonna put as much renewable energy on the grid as we can, but we have to make sure it's affordable. And we're regulated by the Public Service Commission. So they set our rates, they tell us what projects we can put in place. And so when we want to put in renewable projects, we have to go through the whole approval process and go and make sure that it's approved and that it's affordable. So the main point here is that the change to renewable energy into a cleaner grid just needs to be done in a responsible way, and that's something that we take into account when we're looking at projects. And I'm trying to make sure that we're keeping our rates low. We try to keep them lower than the average. So from 2016 through 2025, our average electric energy rate increase was 0.9%, which is lower than the average in the state and in the country. We just want to make sure that every customer can benefit from clean energy transition, not just those who have money already and can afford to do their own projects. Eliminating the use of coal is a huge part of our goal. And so in 2026, the Columbia Energy Center located in Portage will be retiring completely. And then in 2030, coal will only be used as a backup fuel at Elm Road. And by 2032, coal is expected to be totally out of the portfolio. And I think We Energy is on track for the same thing at their other facilities also. But we're not the operators of these plants. We own a small portion of the units at the plants. This chart just shows all of the different renewable energy projects that we've put in place in the recent years, and also some of the ones that are either under construction or being planned. I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's a lot of things coming up, and there's even more things coming into the future. Also, we just put a certificate of authority in with the Public Service Commission to build some more. So that's going through the approval process now. It's kind of a long, arduous process, but we're pretty hopeful that those will all go through. It includes things like solar and wind, which you're all probably familiar with, but also we have some battery storage projects coming up. So battery storage, if we can generate electricity during the day with solar when it's nice and sunny, and we can store the electricity in batteries, we can maybe have that dispatchable so that we can use battery storage, energy stored in batteries rather than turning on a natural gas unit. So we've added over 50 megawatts since the end of 2023 of just renewable energy, and we're expecting to have another 50 megawatts coming online this year. Actually, I've been told it's more than that, but about 50. MGD's light duty vehicle fleet, we're transitioning all of our light duty vehicles to either full electric or plug-in hybrids. Right now, we're at about 42% this year of our fleet is of our light duty fleet are EVs. And we make sure that there's a renewable energy set aside for those charging units when we charge them at MGD. Then our last goal I wanted to talk about is our net zero methane goal. So in Wisconsin, all of the utilities pretty much, because it was mandated like 30 or 40 years ago, have already transitioned to high integrity pipelines. So we already have a really good tight pipeline system in Wisconsin for all the natural gas distribution. So we basically it's plastic and it's cathodically protected steel. So in other parts of the country, you'll have bare steel or just like, old cast iron things that are still being used for natural gas. So those utilities have these, impressive 90% goals because they have such a leaky system already that they can set a really aggressive goal. We're already like here, so there's not a lot of space to improve, but we are doing things like last year we did a pilot project with a cross compression gas control. So that basically means instead of when they did a large pipeline project where they were able to collect the natural gas and put it back in the pipeline rather than let it release out into the system. So there's when they have to do these things, sometimes they can cap it at a certain spot, but then there's this open part of the pipeline and sometimes that gets just released into the atmosphere. So there's new technologies out there that we've been trying out to see if that works for us and if we can use it, and it was successful. So we don't really have a lot of large pipeline projects in the area that we would need to use this type of technology, but it's something that we used and we'll probably keep doing that. And then the other thing that's important to know about natural gas distribution systems is that there's not a really good way to measure your leaks right now. It's basically just an emission factor. You take your miles of pipeline and you multiply it by an emission factor and it gives you your number. Mm-hmm. And that's not very accurate. It's probably an overestimate. So what we have been looking at is different new technologies. There's different leak detection systems using satellites or using these really impressive vehicles that can drive around and pinpoint leaks like to the valve on your house, and it can tell you that you have a leak. And so we've done a couple pilots with those types of systems also. The other thing that we introduced this year is a renewable natural gas green tariff program. And if you're an MGE gas customer, you have the option to pay a little bit more for clean renewable natural gas on your bill, and you can choose a percentage or an amount that you want to use towards that. If you want to have a portion of your natural gas designated as renewable clean natural gas.
So it's a different kind of natural gas.
Yeah, it's a project. It's I don't know exactly. I think it's a local project. I think that was something that they made that was important, that we didn't have some like East Coast project that that we were saying that we were buying it. It's actually in a local area, and it's from a digester.
Oh, I see.
Yep. So it's taking methane from like compost or from a farm, and it's creating a more clean natural gas. It's a net zero type of a system in a digester.
Yeah, we're not exactly injecting that renewable natural gas into our distribution system. We're essentially paying for the renewable natural gas to be injected into some pipeline within the country, right? Okay. So we purchased 2 projects. One I think was in like Kewaunee County.
Yeah.
That might have been a dairy farm, and then there was I guess, more cost-effective project that we purchased that's in Virginia at a landfill.
Oh,
So, and
An offset.
yeah,
As
yeah,
an
so,
offset.
yeah, as an offset, yeah, so we'll retire those renewable thermal certificates on your behalf. Like some corporations, they have, very stringent sustainability goals, and some of it does include decarbonizing their natural gas generation. And so that's a way for them to do it more economically than actually like generating their own natural gas, renewable natural gas.
they have digesters in Dane County, but I imagine
Yep.
they're not the size that you're looking for.
They are a lot of, so the Springfield digester in Middleton,
Yeah,
my understanding is they are compressing it. And they are actually sending it to the Rotafel landfill on the east side,
oh,
and that's being sold at Quick Trip.
oh, there you go.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
yeah, so,
and there's the Dane County digester also that one, I think does get injected into the pipeline, but
mhm.
we're not, that's not for us.
And those credits are going to California where they're worth a lot more than what
Yeah.
we're looking for.
Oh, no,
Any questions from anyone out in the audience about the presentation? I have
Yeah. Go ahead.
go ahead, yeah, go ahead,
Thanks,
Jeff.
thanks Brenda for the really good presentation. It's great to see what you guys are doing. Are there things that municipalities can do in terms of, I mean, I personally, in my house have rooftop solar and I've got the green energy tomorrow, so I think I paid an extra cent per kilowatt hour.
That's
or
correct,
something.
yeah.
Yeah,
Can municipalities do that? Do they do that? Are we doing that? And does that influence anything? Is the greenification of your grid dependent on increased demand?
yes, that's
Or
a
is
great
it,
question.
just doing it anyway, it doesn't matter if I pay it extra?
No, that's a great question, because if we don't have demand for green energy, like if we can't show that there's
Yeah.
demand, we won't be able to get a project approved. So I think municipalities can buy into green power tomorrow, right?
That is, yeah,
Okay.
correct.
He knows more about that than I do, but there's other things that municipalities can work with us on, like I think there's even opportunities for dedicated projects.
Yep, yeah, so to your point, we do have green power purchase agreements set up with some local municipalities. City of Madison comes to mind, the Middleton School District, City of Middleton, so we've got a number of local utility scale arrays. Maury Airport, we have an array. We have an array down at O'Brien Solar Fields in Fitchburg. And these are where we'll set up individual power purchase agreements with specific customers who will pay, they'll pay for a share of that utility, and then we'll give them essentially green energy pricing for the energy that comes specifically from those projects. We don't have anything right now like that, but we are coming out with a shared solar program probably in the next year and a half, where customers like the size of City of Monona can actually invest specifically towards those projects as a way to decarbonize your energy, your electric consumption.
That's great. I guess the follow-up question is, you made the case that greenify with us or through us because we're doing the grid and getting more green. How reliable is that, given that you guys are dependent on the Public Service Commission and with politics? I mean, is this something that can stop as elections happen in this country?
Well, we have some really smart people who are good at energy forecasting, and no, I don't think that the politics would cause it to stop, because we have been able to keep going no matter who's in power, like who's in office, right? But we have some really smart people at MGE who have done these forecasts, and they are pretty, confident in the numbers that we're putting out there, because they've been able to forecast that we will be able to make that 80% by 2030 based on what's already being planned. So I think we're,
Yeah, that's
pretty-
reassuring to hear.
yeah, I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't make that, like there's no reason why they cancel projects that are already being planned and things like that.
Another question.
Yep.
But you can go, you have something.
Go ahead.
Okay, just out of curiosities, I've been learning a little bit more about clean repowering, so taking old lines that are retiring, and instead of going through the lengthy impact review 5-year process, being able to connect to those retiring lines instead of adding new ones. Is that anything that MG&E has looked into?
I don't know anything about that.
Are you talking about like transmission lines?
No, like interconnection, like connecting renewable projects. For energy generation.
Well, I mean, there's at least some, like, for example, at Columbia Energy Center, the coal units are being retired. But we have a pilot project that's being built now, which is it's called the Energy Dome. And so they're repurposing a lot of the facilities for clean energy.
Yeah.
And that's stuff that we're kind of exploring, but the Energy Dome project is actually, it's a pilot project and it's a CO2 compression. It kind of holds the energy from the CO2 until it's needed, and then it can compress it and put it through a turbine when it is needed. And then it can like it's like a big balloon kind of thing, like a giant.
It sounds amazing and complicated.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it once it's built, but they're just starting to build it, and it's a small scale project, but and there's only one like that in Europe somewhere. But it's something, those are the types of things that we're doing with some of the old sites.
Repurposing, yeah.
Or even just putting in large scale like engines that can be dispatched really quickly. So natural gas engines, even though that's not renewable, it's still needed because it's a backup in case everything goes wrong. We need to make sure we can keep the lights on for people. And so those types of engines are really there for like a emergency backup. But
Yeah.
those are the types of things that are being put into some of the older facilities.
Would it be okay if I send something along I can't do justice explaining this.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, for sure. I give a business card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Thor's got our email addresses too.
You want to send me,
Yeah.
I would be interested in reading that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Anything else?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay.
I'll wait.
You had your resolution of things to achieve by doing whatever. So do we.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with it? You haven't seen it,
No,
right?
but I mean, everybody,
I have it pulled up in front
all
of me.
of the,
Yeah, yeah.
all the, every customer
So-
has goals.
Yeah,
Yep.
so some years ago, Monona became the 5th city in Wisconsin to seek 100% clean energy. It was, I can't recall the year. But Thor's got it up there. So our goals are that we would reach 100% of our municipal energy demands, including buildings and infrastructure. Have you got it there? You've got it there.
Yep.
Okay, great. So wait for the result. There you go.
So my question though would be, to what degree can we or are we working with MG&E to achieve these?
Well, I guess that's what I had jotted down as well. So if we get, let's just theoretically, if the city gets 100% of its electricity from MG&E. And if MG&E has 80% of its energy being created through clean sources, I mean, I know that it's not exactly.
It's not exactly the
so-
same thing.
Exactly, so
Because
go
we're
ahead and, yeah.
80% reduction in tons does
Yeah.
not necessarily mean
Right.
80% clean energy, right?
Right.
So, which is, yeah. So I see what you're saying, like, how do you get there? How do you get
there?
How do you get
Yeah.
to your 100%?
Yeah,
Well, that's helpful to explain, but I mean, it seems to me Brad and Dan are probably having some level of conversations with you, but I'm wondering how we might want to work with that, or how we as a sustainability committee can assist.
Sure, yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. I think it comes down to trying to understand like what does our framework or our roadmap look like? So we can not guarantee, but probably by 2030, you know, that metric 0.4 pounds of CO2 per kilowatt hour, right?
That's
We'll get-
your goal.
That's our goal,
Right.
right? So we'll get there for you by 2030. And then, you know, based on whatever your framework is, right, how do we eliminate that last 0.4? Could it be carbon offsets? through renewable energy projects? Does it have to be 24/7 carbon-free electricity? Like,
Yeah, because you
it's-
can net it out on an annual basis or even on a,
So as you get cleaner, we get cleaner.
Absolutely, yeah,
So the more you do, the less we have to do.
correct, yeah, and you guys, you have quite a few solar projects,
We
on
do.
your municipal
We
buildings.
do, but
Right,
we're
but
talking
every-
about taking them down.
Okay, well, that's a conversation for another day, right? But every kilowatt hour that you pay for on your bill, that comes directly from our grid, right? And so your sustainability efforts are dependent upon what our generation mix looks like.
Sorry.
Okay.
So
So I'm-
For reference.
Yeah.
Our 2022 data that we reported for GTLC shows that our municipal energy use. We have about 28% of that coming from renewable energy sources.
Okay.
About 6% of that we're generating ourselves. And about like 22% is what we're buying from MG&E. What they're providing us in renewable energy. So we are heavily reliant on what MG&E is providing us for that renewable energy.
Yeah.
But we're at about 28% overall.
and that's in line with where MG&E is for percent of renewables.
Mhm.
For us, we're at about 22-23%. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you're at 23% now, but so earlier on, I wrote down something you said about, let's see. It was, you want to make sure that the goals of your customers are in alignment with your initiatives,
Right.
right? But you didn't know that we had a resolution to achieve 100% renewable energy.
I did, that's why I scheduled this meeting.
Okay. Okay. So, we're going to referendum just on our operating budget. We can't just pay to put solar panels on every rooftop, or many rooftops can't support the panels. How does the community put pressure? I'll just say it. How do we put pressure on you to move faster?
Go.
Oh boy, that's $1 million question, isn't it?
Well, I think,
You mentioned, I heard the phrase, our stakeholders are demanding it.
Yeah,
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 Okay.
yeah.
yeah, and we're going, what our CEO always says is, if we can go further, faster, we will.
Yeah.
So I think the point, we're going as fast as we can, but if we don't have the support from you guys either, we can't
How do we
do the project,
How do we
so.
show you that we are in support? How do we demonstrate support?
Yeah.
Be an intervener in our rate cases.
Be an intervener in your rate
Yes,
cases.
so
Meaning,
every time that we file to build, a new renewable energy project, somebody's gotta pay for it, right? And so whenever we go to file for electric rate increases, right, we basically go to the Public Service Commission and say, here's the cost of capital, here's the projects that we want to build over the next, 5 to 10 years. This is what it's going to cost, right? And so the commission essentially has to decide what burden our customers or ratepayers can take on, right? So like Dane County always writes letters of support for our clean energy projects. The city always writes letters of support for clean energy projects. But then again, there are also interveners like the Sierra Club and Citizens Utility Board who are advocating on behalf of residential customers, low-income customers to say, you know what, this 5% increase that you're proposing, there's no way that our constituents can take that on, right? So it's kind of like a song and a dance where, we want to invest as much as we can, as soon as we can, right? But at the end of the day, somebody's got to pay for that, right? Some of it comes from our shareholders, some of it comes from our ratepayers.
so as an intervener, what would that even mean? What would that look like?
You would write a letter of support.
Okay,
You would track, so every filing that's submitted to the Public Service Commission receives a docket number. And so you can sign up for updates, right? So every time a document or a piece of evidence is inserted into the document, you'll get notified on the status of the filing, right? And what other people are saying, other interveners who are commenting on how the filing is going, right? I'm not in regulatory, that's just my best way that I can describe it in layman's terms, right? But it's, like I said, it's it's quite a song and a dance where we have to balance out what's best for our customers with, you know, us being able to hit our sustainability goals within a certain amount of time frame that our customers are actually desiring.
Now, do I understand too that, this is from another source from the company though? That a lot of the problem is the fact that in the past you had invested in other projects that didn't have this, so you're kind of locked into using those projects or, but you know, in order to continue to pay the stockholders and keep them happy or whatever. I mean, I don't know exactly how that works, but you know, wasn't there something there that also kind of holds you back from going strictly all? Just
I don't know.
based on the economics and the thing.
Yeah, are you talking about like depreciating assets?
I think
Like with retire, where
so.
we
I
can't
don't know.
retire,
I
we
don't
can't
know
retire
anything about
generation
it.
assets too soon.
Yeah,
I think so, but
that's
yeah.
one of the reasons why Columbia Energy Center is not being retired till 2026, because
Right,
we
okay.
can't, if we retired it earlier, we would have blackouts, because there's nothing to replace it. And you can't build it fast enough. You can't build the solar and the wind fast enough. So I don't know if it's directly like what you just said, but I think it's everybody wants to go really fast, but you have to follow the regulatory rules, you have to follow the approval process, and then there's all of these supply chain issues right now, trying to even just get things.
Yeah.
So we're going as fast as we can. I think this isn't my area, but I know that we've had other partnerships with municipalities and other governmental agencies and like the UW, we're talking to them about what kind of what kind of projects would they like to see and how can we make it happen? So, I mean, I think that's something that could be a discussion. It's not my area, but it's
Yeah.
something that, you know, people at MGD could definitely be talking about with the city.
For sure.
So now you know our goals. And I'm hearing we could intervene, we could write letters to sort of help speed things along. Any other questions from the audience? Go ahead.
Mine is a little off, a higher
Yeah.
level.
Yeah.
I'm just very curious, you know, MG&E is one of a number of power companies in the state. To what extent are the goals that you have impacting or influencing, you know, other providers? Do you guys know? Is there a broader conversation about that statewide?
Well, we work really closely, at least in my department, in my group, like environmental people. We all know each other, you know, we're all friendly and talk to each other about projects and different things. And of course, we're co-owners in a lot of different facilities. We're part of the Wisconsin Utilities Association, so we compare notes, who are you talking to and things like that. But as far as the goal, influencing the goals, I think pretty much all the utilities have very similar goals. And that's the case around the whole country. So if you were to look for any utilities goals, they're pretty close to what we have for electricity generation anyway.
Is that true in Oklahoma,
Yes,
Texas?
yep.
Yeah, and we're one of the smallest investor-owned utilities in the country. So it's, I wouldn't say it's gonna be easier for us to get there, but I think, and Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like we're much more of a nimble utility and we are more prone to be more progressive in identifying pilot opportunities just because we know that our customers have more of like a progressive mindset about trying
Yeah.
to get
Right,
to a clean energy.
like you
world
said, like
sooner.
we're not in Texas or Oklahoma, we have a lot of support from the community.
Yeah,
People
Yeah.
want this, so we're trying to do it, and and the people in Dane County really want this, so. And that's pretty much our area, is Dane County.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
electricity.
So when you say you can't build them fast enough, is that because of regulations or the PSC? Or is it because there aren't as many opportunities to build solar or wind?
Well, yeah, I think it's a combination of all of those things. It's it's a lengthy process to get approved. And you have to have a good case. Why are you building this and why do you need it? You know, why should you spend money on this? And so, yeah, it's a lengthy process.
Okay,
Do you have, Brendan, do you have an idea, like the second that we file, right, a certificate of authority to build a utility scale renewable energy project to the day that it's commissioned, what does that typically look like?
I wanna
3
say
to 5 years?
5 years, yeah.
I sent you this article. I'm not gonna get into it, but I think it's gonna help. There's another. Not that I'm an expert.
Okay, perfect.
so we as a community, we can support you to a certain degree. What do we as a government do either on our own or otherwise? To reach our goals?
To reach your
We
goals.
generate our own electricity.
Well, we're
We have-
trying to
I
do
mean,
that with
that's-
our solar.
That's what I'm, yeah, I mean,
You can generate your own electricity and you can buy into some of the programs that we have already, like our Green Power Tomorrow. You know, like, those are done already, like.
I mean, we
that's
could
already there.
achieve our goals today if we just bought renewable,
Right.
we could just buy RECs and we
Yeah,
could just
you
wreck
can buy
our way
RECs.
to 100%,
Right.
but you know, that's,
Not feasible.
I mean, well, it's just,
And Rex might be
it's
part of
like
the
a cheaper
solution,
way to
but
do
yeah.
it. I mean,
You can tell me what Rex is.
but Green Power Tomorrow in a lot of ways is sort of like a REC, and I mean, in the sense that
It is.
it encourages new
Right.
creation,
Yeah.
it finances the new creation of solar.
It's a REC and a REC is a renewable energy credit.
Oh,
Yeah,
So those are projects that are they're tracked by the megawatt. And so anybody who's generating a REC is a clean megawatt. And then it's retired so that nobody else can take credit for it. Only one customer, one utility gets credit for that. And then it's, done. And
for
so-
that year.
For that year,
Right,
yeah.
yeah.
I would say, like, Brenda hit on this a little bit during her presentation, but at some point, probably in the near future, whenever the sun is out, our entire distribution system is gonna be green. Right? I would assume maybe even by 2030.
Yeah.
So if a customer is thinking about investing in on-site solar, right? They have to understand if they're doing it for a sustainability reason, then you're really only helping us to clean the grid within the next 4 to 5 years. Essentially, right? Because the power that you're generating on site would be replacing the power that we're generating for you, right? That can also come from renewable energy resources. So, our chairman and CEO, Jeff Keebler, he likes to tell us if customers want to know how they can help reduce carbon, take carbon out of the atmosphere, leave the cleaning of the grid to us
Mhm.
and invest in electric vehicles. Or beneficial electrification, right? Identify creative ways where you can decarbonize your fossil fuel burning,
Mhm.
right? So I know the county is really looking at this hard because they've already hit their 2030 or their 2025 renewable electricity goal. And now they're trying to figure out what to do with all of the natural gas that they're burning at their facilities. And they just, they've been working with a firm called HGA on the west side
Mhm.
to understand, okay, of these 10 buildings, how can we decarbonize all of these buildings and remove fossil fuel based natural gas from these facilities? And a lot of it has to do with, installing geothermal heat pump systems, right? So the capital required for some of these projects, people might not have,
Mhm.
but if you're talking about like, the built environment and new construction, that's kind of the direction that we're seeing, where people are just using electricity coming from renewable resources to power everything. There's an elementary school in Fitchburg. The name escapes me now. It's in the Terra Vista neighborhood. They don't have natural gas pipe to the building. It's all electricity. They've got solar on the roof. They've got battery energy storage, and they've got a geothermal heat pump system. So it can be done. It's just a matter of, how much and how much time is it gonna take?
This puts a whole different perspective.
Go ahead.
I think we can talk to you guys all night. because
Right.
we're in sick now.
Yeah, it's very-
We've all got our angles and questions, but we're now into the
I
agenda.
know. Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
No, it's great, you're riveting. Thank you.
All right, so thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Um,
And you know what, if
My
you want,
pleasure.
if you want us to come back in a year or
Yeah.
even less, if you have something else that you want to discuss, we'd be happy to.
I would say
Okay.
ping us if we have chances to intervene. I'm sure all of us would love to
Yeah,
write a
yeah.
letter for.
Okay.
Rates and things like that. So,
Sounds great.
All right, wonderful. Thank you for that. Tim.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks very much.
Nice meeting you guys.
Actually, there is a project that we just put in for approval for a whole we're partnering with We Energies on these, but I think it's basically We Energies. But we just put in a CA, Certificate of Authority, for a whole tranche of renewable projects. So that might be an opportunity to intervene.
Can you send us specifics?
I can check and see if I can find that.
I spoke at one of the
Yeah.
PSC meetings for the Koshkonong project
Okay.
through the Sierra Club. There's a big, not in my backyard kind of phenomenon.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to combat that, so there are opportunities for us to help. So.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Right, thank you. All right, I'm gonna move then to, on the agenda, it's number 5. But I'm gonna jump down to, I'm gonna take the 5A operating budget and discuss that after we see ND. I think after we're discussing BC and D, we might have some, our memories are gonna be a little bit jogged about, we've got this, some money sitting in our, reserves that must be put into play before the end of the calendar year. All right, so moving then to 5B, discussion and possible action item on the residential tree buying program. Just to keep things, feel free to chime in, Tim, but just to keep things moving quickly. An update to this committee is that we got our grant out the door. We have applied for a urban forestry grant from the DNR for a dollar amount that was a little higher than we originally believed we might apply for, because we discovered that labor and volunteer labor can be reimbursed. So that significantly changed the calculus on that. So we've applied for a grant that is, I want to say $4,500. So I will just take a stab. It's
Ballpark, yeah.
something like that. I can't remember the exact dollar amount. And we'll know whether we receive that in a few weeks. I think everyone is familiar with the gist of this proposal, correct? I think we've talked about it before. All right, wonderful. So one update was that we were given a green light from the city's Director of Public Works that that department is perfectly fine with allowing residents not only to plant trees on private property, but also in the city right of way, which was something that we were really happy to hear about. Tim and Ken and Thor and I, looks like we might be meeting next week with a representative from the Urban Tree Alliance, just to learn a little bit more about what that program is all about. We've already met with folks from the Cambridge Tree Project and the Watertown Project. And gosh, I feel like there was something else that I was gonna share with you about this. Tim, am I missing something here?
Thank you, the highlights.
Hitting the highlights. All right, great. Wonderful. Good stuff going on there. Next, 5C, discussion and possible action on the leaf-free streets and adopt a storm drain project. Just to hit the highlights, Thor and Brad and me, was it just the 3 of us that met and did some brainstorming?
I think that was the problem.
Yes, that's right. Did some brainstorming about, what Brad would like to see. Brad is the city's stormwater expert. And we just wanted to make sure that if he had any goals that he would like to see, that we would be working together and not opposed from one another. So his goal is to take a look at the existing Adopt a Storm Drain program and really sort of rebrand this program for starting next year in early 2025 would be the time to start. And the message behind adopting a storm drain would also carry through with all of the sustainability committee's work. In autumn, it would all tie back to Lake Monona, right? So in autumn, you adopt a storm drain to get phosphorus out of Lake Monona. In the winter, you don't be salty to get chlorides out of Lake Monona. In the spring, you reduce your chemical use on your lawns and you plant native plants to get, to help Lake Monona. So that's just a really nice direction, I think, that the committee might want to go into. Let's see, what else can I update you with? When we talk about our autumn campaign, Kristen has been doing a lot of work on that already. Would you like to share anything? Actually, what we could combine, well, let's talk about the autumn campaign first, actually, yeah.
Well, most recently, Teresa Thor and I had the opportunity to meet this morning or this afternoon, with Christine Welcher from MESBA. We learned some interesting information about MESBA's own initiatives to give a greater visibility and emphasis on sustainability as it relates to ecotourism and really bringing in, highlighting and encouraging that aspect of growth. And so we see this as a great opportunity to kind of grease each other's wheels with bringing in this initiative. We are welcome to present an educational awareness at their November 6th, I think, meeting.
Something like that, yeah.
So we would want to discuss with you all kind of what, what that might look like and how to go forward. They also have an opportunity for us to, I have my notes here, but they have also a, forgive me here. They also have a MESBA newsletter that is published every other Thursday. So this is an opportunity for us to kind of pump good information with various initiatives, not just our Adopt a Storm Drain or our autumn, keep leaves off the streets campaign. So anyhow, we'd like to discuss that with you. Prior to today's meeting, Teresa and I had an opportunity to give greater visibility and kind of promote this effort at the Monona Farmers Market, where we tabled for a couple of hours. Had some nice interactions with some community members about the effort, and we're welcome to come on back if we want to do another tabling activity. So I hit glossed on the highlights here. Teresa, did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
One thing I did want to bring us back around to was just like goal setting and goal hitting. And I know that Tim's been someone that always reminds me about these things, like is in terms of like how we measure success for storm drains being adopted. I don't have that number from Brad right now, but we just need to keep that. We have to make sure we get that number from Brad on the first storm drains adopted. All right. Would you like to say anything about, I think the only thing I would say more about the autumn campaign is that Kristen can't do it alone. So if there's anyone else who, I know that Tim and Ken are busy with the tree program. I know I've been lending a hand to Kristen, and I know I think Jamie, you're thinking more like winter campaign is more your thing. Is that what I understood, or maybe I misunderstood?
I was thinking that, I was, so just trying to track the email chain, it seemed like we needed to limit the number of people in the subcommittees, so I was just trying
We
to.
need one more person, yes, yeah. So
Okay.
one alder and 2 volunteers is kind of like the number that we're okay with, yeah.
Have we established the winter one then? What does
we-
that make up?
Kristen has offered to help with that as well,
Okay,
yeah.
so we just need another, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to help.
So for winter,
For winter, but if
okay,
we need somebody on the fall one, I can jump on that too.
I say yes, that'd be great. So let's do that.
Great.
That'd be fantastic. And then, so we've started meeting weekly Wednesdays at 3 or something like that in the afternoon, 3 or 4.
3:30.
So we'll include you
Okay.
in that recurring meeting. And then we can sort of buzz down the list of things that Kristen has already done. Thank you so much, Jamie. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question about your interactions with
Yeah.
the world outside
Yeah,
of the farmer's market? Did anything particularly hit you about the conversations, or what were people looking for or appreciating or
Yeah,
wanting or?
I had an eye-popping conversation with
Oh, you did?
the person I was talking to said, yeah, we've adopted a storm drain. I'm like, that's fantastic. And then they said, and whenever I notice that the leaves are piling up, I just kick them down the drain and I just make sure that the water can flow freely. And I kind of tried not to, I just, you know, what do you say in those moments, you know, so. It was a misunderstanding. It was a misunderstanding about how,
What they were.
about the responsibilities that.
Interesting.
We have
It
an
was
opportunity
interesting.
to improve how we communicate about that.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I think the
Yeah.
other takeaway was that in the conversations with folks, it was the, what do I do with the
Yeah.
debris? You know, what do I do when I pick it up?
Right.
And there was, I was so touched, it was a very heartfelt moment with a young guy and his partner, they came up and he mentioned that he takes routine walks in his
Yeah.
Monona neighborhood. Several storm drains are always kind of on his radar. He pushes stuff out of the way, but he wants to know what he really should do with it. Since he doesn't know the homeowner is not gonna put it on the lawn, so he said, should I just carry a large satchel?
I know he was,
And just go around collecting it? And I just thought, bless your heart,
he
you
was
know?
really committed.
Somebody
Yeah.
really surprised me the other day, because I do 4 right around my, I mean, I have 4 right in my driveway and.
I'm your
next to
neighbor, I
Yeah,
know.
right, you know that, that storm drain area. But I had I'm assuming maybe a high school student also come down the street and he said, you know, he saw me out there sweeping. And he said, can I help you with that? Oh, thank you, that's so sweet, I don't know, but if you have a storm drain uphill, you gotta, from me, please. Do something with it. So it's kind of interesting.
So just to, I don't mean to cut you
No,
off,
no,
just to
that's
keep the
good.
meeting
No,
rolling
right,
along.
uh-huh.
So I think what I'm taking away, my 2 things that are sticking in my memory about the autumn campaign is that Jamie's gonna help out, which is fabulous. And we're gonna meet next Wednesday. And between now and then, we'll make sure to get you caught up with any notes that we've taken so far about what's in the hopper.
That sounds
Um,
good. You said like 3 to 4-ish, something like that.
Something like that,
Okay.
if I'm not mistaken, it's like.
I forwarded the meeting.
Oh,
invite to you.
wonderful, wonderful, yay.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So then for the winter campaign, I think it's, I don't know, do we need to take up meeting time tonight? I guess the thing to say about the winter campaign is that it's equally benefiting that we connected with MESBA today.
Right.
Because Christine is very interested in helping us push out information in that way.
They're both
Yeah.
on our radar. We know now
Yeah.
that the channels to use through MESBA, the frequency of,
Yeah.
you know, getting on them.
Yeah.
So we'll do it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yay. I'm really excited about the new branding that really ties it all into the lake. I like that. There's something to do every season of the year. It's just neat and tidy.
Could I throw something in there real quick? Okay, feel free to shoot this idea down. I just get these wild ideas, but thinking about trying to move forward, adopt a storm drain,
Yeah.
get more people aware of how to do it, what we're asking, what it would be, and have it be like a family event or a community thing for them to like feel like they really own a part of Monona alongside their community. Could we do something with like the fall festival where we just printed out like a huge version of the map and we track the addresses or where the sites are and let people do it on site there?
Yes, we've already been talking about that.
Oh,
But
okay.
But we'll we'll get you updated when we meet
Okay.
on Wednesday, yeah.
And then
Yeah.
my other question is just about like tabling, if we wanna.
Yeah.
Do that kind of stuff, so,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
I
We
have
may
a
or may
map,
not,
which
we may or
might be
may not.
useful for you. It's a great big one and it has them. But it's more complicated, so it may not be exactly. There is one. So, but it.
Yeah, and I think I'm just gonna move on then to our operating budget, which is number 5A, discussion and possible action on the 2025 sustainability operating budget. Thor, go ahead and tell us what we need to know about that.
All right, so to reiterate, we do still have about $1,100 in the 2024 budget that will not be rolled over into next year. So kind of a use it or it gets reallocated situation. It'll just go into the general fund. We started with 2,000 this last year, which was double what we had in 2023. So For 2025, I've been told the proposal will again be for 2,000. And here is the breakdown of those project expenses. We had budgeted 1,000 for the pilot tree planting program. Do you, Teresa, anticipate that'll change at all with the? That was when we were initially gonna apply for only $1,000 for that grant. Now, of course, it's 4,500.
I will need to write myself a note to get you those figures, yeah.
And then for outreach and marketing funds, only $100, which is not a lot, but there's a chance to reallocate things here. The e-cycle event, $400. Their fee was $350 the last few years, and I've asked, if they could confirm it would be $350 again, and I haven't heard yet. So I've just budgeted 400 in case, that does increase. And then I mentioned this at a previous meeting that we have the opportunity to participate in this Dane County Clean Sweep event. Clean Sweep is the county's program where county residents can bring hazardous materials to the landfill. It's normally $15 to participate, but the county has an ongoing effort right now where they're working with communities to subsidize that cost, where the county will pay $5 of the ticket, the community will pay $5, and then the resident will only have to pay $5 instead of 15. So we can buy a certain number of tickets at, for us, $5 per ticket. And the county has recommended that we purchase at least 100 tickets. That's just, to ensure there's enough to supply to meet demand. I don't think we need to do 100 if we want to reallocate some of that money to somewhere else. If we only did 60 tickets, for instance, and committed $300, I think that's an option. My contact at the county referenced last year in Cottage Grove, which has a similar population, they had 103 people register for the event, but only 64 attended. But the caveat there is last year, residents didn't have to pay anything. They could just reserve a ticket for free, and there was no motivation to show up then necessarily. There's no money down for them. So the county's changed the program a little bit this year where they want the residents to have some skin in the game, where if you reserve a ticket, you have to buy it. So
we're not boxed into any of this, right? I mean, if we find out, it sounds like we got some flexibility when the time comes and the budget allows, or how rigid do we need to be with these projections?
yeah,
Like, when do we buy these tickets? Now? Or-
they want a commitment by Monday.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep, so that's the big
Wow.
discussion point here is how much we want to spend on this event.
So,
Oh,
So we are-
Dane County Clean Sweep wants a
Yeah.
commitment, not the whole city, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
at the what?
So I was just.
yeah, it's the county that wants.
We only have to
commitment
make
from
a
us.
decision before Monday on the $500.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Neil, the city administrator supports us participating,
Yeah.
but the money will have to come from the sustainability budget.
Which one? 2020,
The-
25?
Clean-
25,
Clean Sweep.
it'll be a 25 expense.
So then we are committing to $500.
We are
Or
asking,
less.
that's the question on the
Yeah.
table.
How
How much
many-
should we commit to?
So we commit to buying, but not necessarily amount.
We have a commitment to buying a certain number of tickets that then we will make available to the residents to buy at this discounted rate essentially.
Right.
Feels like 60.
So it could be 60, yeah.
Is a better number, and throw an extra 100 or 200 into the outreach and marketing
Mhm.
funds is what I would propose.
Can you say that again, Tim?
I'd say 60 tickets for $300, and then we have $300 for outreach and marketing funds.
Yeah,
Come up short on tickets, great, and for the following year.
Yeah, and we had a really strong turnout this year, so I think we can be certain that those.
well, we didn't do that event this year. this is the clean sweep. This is different from the e-cycling event. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's okay, yeah.
That makes sense to me, just.
So- Yeah, so since we haven't done it before, right,
Yeah.
start small and
Yeah.
then take that money and take it over to outreach and marketing. Yeah,
I would say too, if with the changes to the tree planting
right,
grant, if we don't need to commit $1,000
right.
to that, then of course that money could be reallocated for outreach and the tree or the clean sweep event.
I think we will
So-
need to commit $1,000
Okay.
at least to the tree planting program, perhaps even, yeah. I think we will.
My recommendation was gonna be the same as Tim's, that, you know, we maybe only commit $300 for the clean sweep event, 60 tickets. And move the remaining over to outreach funds,
And
unless we don't have to commit 1,000 to the tree planting program, then I would keep clean sweep at 500.
And remind me again, the trees could be planted either on their own properties or it has to be in the 6-foot space.
yeah. So
Yeah,
for purposes of the budget, so the residents would pay half of a tree and the sustainability committee would pay half of a tree.
Mhm.
And we're thinking of piloting, starting small
Mhm.
and planting between 10 and 20 trees. So let's say the tree costs $200, just for easy math, right? So for $1,000 outlay from the sustainability committee, we get 10 trees. And the resident pays the other $1,000 for those 10 trees, right?
But the.
Are the trees
location
gonna
of it-
cost 200?
No, the location of it, where it is planted, does it have to be planted near the curb on the city?
It can be planted anywhere, the
Anywhere in
resident
there,
still
okay.
pays the same amount and we still pay the same amount, yeah,
and if it's planted on city right away, it'll just need to be approved by Public Works. They'll have to obtain a
Okay.
right of way permit
Oh,
before
good,
they do
okay,
anything,
because, yeah.
but Public Works is willing to
Yeah.
waive the permit fee for right of way permits.
So for purposes of budget discussion though, I think what I'm hearing is a change to that $500, take it down to 3. And then we can figure out the rest of the budget some other time, right? So we just need to tell Neil that we're gonna do only 300.
Yeah, that to ensure that we have enough for outreach and marketing, we would prefer to
Yeah.
take it down to 300.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I'll need to, is there any support of not doing something on this list? Like support for not doing the e-cycle event or support for not doing clean sweep in exchange for really hitting the tree planting program? Or my question also is, when Brad talks about rebranding the Adopt a Storm Drain program, is Public Works going to be paying for the new marketing and outreach materials for that? And we just supply the artwork and the creativity.
Do you have an education?
Yeah, they have an
Okay.
education fund, so
Okay.
I would
Good,
expect negotiations with them.
okay.
Yeah,
I know that in the past, we've also talked about no more purchase of no more May signs. But we talked about maybe using some of the money that we have right now for a different kind of sign that would, showcase people's commitment to a natural lawn or natural plantings. Let's just keep that in mind for a conversation, but on the table right now, we need to make a decision about that clean sweep, and I think what I'm hearing people say is $300, not 5. Unless you don't wanna do it at all.
No, I think it's a good thing.
Well, the only other thing that might play into that is whether the electronics recycling, we should wait a year. Because we were doing
I know,
that one year, and
thought
I think we had like 2 people show up. And we were thinking at that point, well, maybe
Every
it's
other.
because they don't have enough stuff yet, if they're thinking about it. I don't know what really made that huge difference.
surprisingly, this year we had an
And we had a
Yeah.
pretty good turnout
huge
this year. It
turnout.
wasn't enormous,
was
but it
our-
was big enough, you know,
Yes.
it was our
definitely
largest
very
since
successful.
2020.
our
would-
largest since 2020.
Yeah, so it really, no.
So maybe yeah.
Maybe it's all the stuff people accumulated during,
Yeah, COVID. No, or they decided they didn't want to go
Yeah.
or something.
I like it as is, if we don't get the tree grant, then we have $1,000 extra to plug into some of these other elements, so I think keeping 4 items, programs, sections up there make sense.
Is it transferable? We can use it elsewhere if the grant doesn't come through.
Yeah, then that 1,000 that we're currently budgeting for the planting program.
We can use
We can
elsewhere.
use any
use-
place.
We could use elsewhere, but it'd still be money we could put towards the tree planting program, you know. We're budgeting 1,000 for that.
Oh, I
So
see.
expecting a grant back,
Right.
right, you know, that's not dependent on the grant.
Can we buy clean sweep tickets right now with the $1,100 we have? And just not use them until next year?
I did ask that and it unfortunately not, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
So that 1,100 does need to be spent,
yeah,
so that's a different discussion.
yeah.
So we can't like sign up for the e-cycling event with $1,100 from this year. We can't do that. We can't sign up for next year's
Yeah.
e-cycling.
Yeah,
wait, forgive me, when do we need to have decisions made about this pool of money that must be spent, use it or lose it?
I think it's by the end of the calendar year.
yeah,
Can we wait on that $1,100 and when we find out on the grant?
Hmm. Maybe we should find out on the grant, maybe. I'm guessing like 3-4 weeks, November.
So November, then
Yeah.
can we December 1st decide to buy 11 trees?
Just
or
buy a
maybe
bunch of trees,
11?
right? Yeah,
Right?
for delivery in the spring.
Yeah.
yeah, I think so, if we get an invoice, you know, before the end of the year and then we can pay it with 2024 money.
Yeah, but is it reimbursable then? Does the grant
Oh, for the
only
grant.
reimburse 2025 expenditures, but so what?
No, the
So
grant will have to be, the terms of the grant is that the project starts January 1st.
So it just allows us to
Yeah,
Buy more trees.
leverage and
Right,
put more on the ground.
right. Okay, so all in favor of reducing the Dane County Clean Sweep budget proposal from $500 to $300?
yeah, let's get a motion
Aye.
first.
Would someone like to make a move to do that?
I move
And move to do that?
A second.
Tim will second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, fabulous.
There you are.
So,
Came into the ceiling tile.
all right,
Could I throw one more
Yeah.
thing in the mix? I think it would be interesting to know if we have like a general wish list of additional budget items if we had the funds, if we had grant funding or some other source, like what else would we wanna do?
Always be asking for more.
Yeah.
We're not right now. It's a good idea. Start a list.
Yeah.
Okay,
all right, I'm gonna move on to number 7 on the agenda. If there are any items related to diversity, equity, inclusion, diversion that folks have been a part of or participated in that you'd like to share with us. Something that I forgot to, write down in October, month of October is Hispanic, month of Hispanic Awareness Month, and just there's so many members of our community that bring that beautiful language to our ears and their talents, and it's just lovely to have that aspect of Monona be among us. I also believe that, and I hate being recorded, so I'm gonna mess this up, but there's Native American Awareness Day that is coming up, I wanna say in October, and if you get the opportunity to dig into a little bit of the history of Indigenous people, Native American people in the United States, there are some heartbreaking stories to learn. It's just a nice opportunity to reflect on some of that history that we have.
Today is Rosh Hashanah.
Rosh Hashanah, very
Happy
nice,
New Year.
very nice, yeah. Anything else? All right, in that case, Thor, do you have any updates? I know that Soul Smart, the Soul Smart work is underway. It passed budget, it passed the city council.
Yep, so next step is we'll receive the like zoning code review from Soul Smart. And I would expect that by the end of the week, so I think
That's
plan on
wonderful.
reviewing that together, or I can present on that at our November meeting.
That is fantastic. Do you
Good
need
news.
any help from anybody?
No, I think first step will be sitting down with Doug,
Yeah.
since it's really an overview of the zoning code.
You bet.
So we'll look at it from a planning perspective and make a plan about how
Yeah.
we wanna engage plan commission and sustainability.
Apparently, after hearing from MGE, not too much. Just let them greenify the grid and we should focus it up somewhere else. It was an interesting framing of that, so that's why I was like. No, well, no, but I mean,
I know.
it's true, it's like they kind of are encouraging us to spend so much effort on solar,
I
so.
did think that was an interesting perspective. It's kind of like, let us handle it. We're the experts.
that's
We
why
know
I
how
was
to,
asking, like,
we know how to produce energy.
Are you guys reliable? Is this gonna
Yeah.
happen?
Right.
It doesn't matter if we have our demand
Right,
through you or if we build our own solar or.
Yeah.
Is it
Something-
gonna happen fast enough for the resources to support them to
Right.
do that work while we work on the rest?
right.
I mean, we've got limited leverage, bandwidth. And I think it matters, for towards changing our zoning for rooftop solar here
Right.
or
Right.
what we do. I mean, should we be pushing on, they make the argument we should be pushing to get all our vehicles green instead of moving about the solar.
That was
It might
interesting.
be true.
Green
So,
public transportation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's just this thoughts for us to think about after you've done all the soul smart.
Yeah. Yeah, and electrifying buildings, right? I guess if solar could replace natural gas.
Yeah, right.
For heating, I don't know if that's a possibility, but yeah, that was an interesting part of
It was an
the
interesting part.
presentation, I agree.
And I get it, like. We all have our specialties, we're all in certain industries. And it's very, like, Sam, you're like, you know what, you got cancer, leave that to me. Don't go try to fix your own cancer, like, call an oncologist. You want energy, leave it to us, we know how to make energy, you want, I mean. I get it, it's an interesting, yeah.
Well, I
Okay.
think that it's also one of those issues for individuals in the community for, making these decisions.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get what is the most, gonna have the most bang for your buck.
Exactly,
and-
right.
and
What can you afford and what will you get to save?
Exactly,
Mhm.
what will you actually be achieving?
Yeah, I mean, I just spent 2 years ago, 20 some grand on rooftop solar,
Yeah.
and now he's like, oh, that's all that matters.
Gee, thanks.
But like, maybe we as a, community shouldn't make the same mistake, so I think it's, there's some
If
element,
it's a mistake.
there's some element of maybe truth to that in terms of how we spend our
It's-
time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It's,
No, it is true.
very true.
well, and what we believe to be the right thing can change with new information as well,
That's also
right?
true.
It's a constant.
But you have to kind of keep
yeah.
priorities.
I will mention that, what I think if you haven't, you can get your absentee ballots. I mean, we had an election in November. Make sure that you vote. That's also the right people. Also has an effect on all the sorts of things that we're talking about. All right. So, in that case, our next meeting is in November the 7th at 5:30. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so love.
Is there a second? All right, all in favor?
Right.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, everybody.
And Ashley.
Bye, night, everyone.
Ashley, we miss you.
Yeah,